Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. BoomStick and Friends. And indeed, I brought the crew along. You know them well. They've been a part of this program almost since inception. We are missing one who is currently Mr. K. Asante on family vacation. We'll have him back here in a couple of weeks. But we do have Hargeet Chani joining us momentarily on loan once again from Game On Daily. And you know what? The more he gets on here, the more I have to keep writing these 50-cent checks, and hopefully they do not bounce. But listen, folks, this is going to be a great show. We have two monster topics that we're going to get into with varied, heavy opinions. I want to get into intros, but I just have to go on record and saying, my God, is it not incredible to be a gamer right now? I don't care where you play. I don't care what box you pray to at night when you go to sleep. But there are so many games that are out right now that it's just absolutely astounding. You're going to get full on well, you're not going to be here for 3 hours, but I have recorded 3 hours of, well, the first 3 hours.
If we start talking about Sonic, we will be here for 3 hours. I'm telling you right now.
And that's okay. And listen, look, speaking of devil, there's Hargeet Chani joining us once again on loan from Game On Daily. I was just saying that if I keep writing these checks to get you over here, I'm going to be out of business. Hargeet, how you feeling, brother? Welcome.
I'm good. Yeah, a couple of days till I go on vacation for a long time, all the way from next week through New Year's.
You know what? Good on you, brother.
Vacation, man.
Good on you to have that kind of vacation time, because that's what I'm talking about. Take the last half of the, last month of the year off, and last 2 months of the year off. But yeah, what I was saying before you jumped in here is that, regardless of what box you play on, you gotta admit it. 2022 might have started out as molasses, but my God, there are so many great games. I'm playing Somerville, I'm playing Gotham Knights, I'm playing Sonic, I am playing Vampire Survivors. Every one of these games, for me personally, and again, this is a personal opinion, are all high nines. They're all going to be in my top 10 of 2022, and they're all currently battling for Game of the Year, because I just am so infatuated with the games that I am playing. God of War. People are going to ask, Boom, have you played it? The answer is I have not. I bought the most expensive digital edition. It's downloaded. It's ready to rock and roll. It's not a console war thing. It's actually a human time thing. I do 5 shows a week. Obviously, there's a lot of time preparing for these shows. Listen, it's I'm going to get to it. I'm going to take some time off during the holidays, not fully go on vacation like Mr. Chani here, but I'm going to take a few days off to catch up with myself and actually play games. But speaking of shows, I kept this under the wrap because I wanted to make sure that I could announce this and have everyone show up to the scene. Tomorrow afternoon's new episode of X Vlog Live is going to see not only the return of King David, but we are going to have Hogue Law joining us to break down everything that is currently going on and some of the things he said in his video that he put out this week, which was, the chef's kiss on how bad this tweet looked for the EU Commission, how bad it's looked for the CMA, and his actual personal opinion on what they're trying to say in regards to this deal being hurtful to consumers is a stretch. That's going to be a full-on 80-minute show with these two gigantic behemoth community members, and it's going to be one topic, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. But let's get into the rest of the panel here. Wandering Dutch, you are quite enjoying God of War Ragnarok. Obviously, you are a true Viking yourself. How the heck are you, man? What you been up to?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm sitting with my.
Yeah, he's got his axe in hand.
I'm good. I'm just gonna shave with the axe.
It's good stuff. I love it.
All is good, don't know. Yeah, I'm loving God of War. I'm about 21 hours into it. I am going for the platinum straight away. I know Mag will do the same, no doubt.
Oh yes.
Yes.
And yet again, like 2018, there is no difficulty achievement, so it's going to make platinuming a lot easier. Although the berserkers, when you come across those, are a pain in the arse. They're like Valkyries on steroids.
Oh
So
no!
that's great.
No.
Yeah.
See that last Valkyrie, folks. I lost so many times to that last Valkyrie
2 days, boom.
that it broke my spirit, because that's one of the games. Like I have I don't know, think 6 or 7 platinums, and everything that I have platinum, I've absolutely adored. Spider-Man, 2018, samurai game. My God, why can't I think of the name of it?
Ghost of
Ghost of
Tsushima.
Tsushima. I platinumed. I am 1 trophy away from Miles Morales, and you know how I feel about that game for a lot of reasons. More so, the opening really, really brought me to tears because of personal reasons. But that's a game that I really, really, really wanted to platinum. And that last MF Valkyrie, I was so desperate. I dropped it to the most cheapest level, the lowest level, difficult level, and I still could not beat her. I got her down to a piece a couple of times, and I was like, you know what? F this. I'm not going to platinum this game.
Yeah.
I've beaten it. That's good enough. But listen, good to have you here, brother. Crispy Bomb. I know that you're going to have a lot to say about the 2 topics that we're covering. Folks, if you don't know, I put it out on the Twitters, as the kids say. We're going to be covering the Game Awards once again in the spotlight, not for being the greatest show every year. Well, once again, Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards find themselves in the spotlight of controversy. We're going to break down what that is, but we're also going to be covering about what Phil Spencer had to say on his, I don't know, 1000th video and interview, where he once again said, no, Call of Duty is going to stay on the PlayStation. There's no trickery. There's no behind the back nonsense. But I got to give a big shout out to Living Split Screen. Obviously, those 2 guys there are my brothers. I consider them to be extensions of my family, just like everybody here on the panel. Of course, I'm talking about I Steel Rain and Pong Soul. And Pong Soul really had me gasp during the show that just passed this Saturday, which, if you're not subscribed, please get over there and subscribe. They're on the hunt to 1K, and they're close. And if you're a YouTuber, whether you're big or small, you understand how important hitting that first 1K is. And if you trust me as a gamer, if you trust me as a content creator, I ask you that you get out and you go over to Living Split Screen and you subscribe just on my word. And I would greatly appreciate that. But Pong Soul made a point to say that he thinks that Microsoft is wants this deal done so badly for their company and their investors that they might, and this is his opinion, folks. I don't agree with it, but we will pardon the snake ringtone. I don't agree with him, but we're going to have a conversation. And he said that he believed Microsoft was so willing to get this deal done so they could move on to other bigger, better things, that they would be willing to accept a consent decree.
Wait a minute, Boom.
Yes.
What is bigger than this?
Well, apparently there is going to be something bigger. What that is, I can't honestly say, but it's going to be bigger. There's no doubt about it. But with that said, what Pong is suggesting is that Microsoft would be willing to offer in a consent decree not only that PlayStation keeps Call of Duty, there's no ever anywhere in business, but they would be willing to put it onto PlayStation Plus Premium. I know that Everborn Saga says no freaking dice, and I agree with him. We're going to get into those 2 big topics. But Crispy Bomb, how the heck are you feeling, brother? And what are the engines revved?
Oh man, it's good to be back. Nice to get away from the turkeys. Yeah.
I can imagine.
Being a butcher this time of year is not fun. I relish you, Hargeet. The holidays are not fun for a butcher. So just remember, when you're going shopping, try to be a little nicer. And, when the guy doesn't look a little too happy, just realize he's probably been asked the same question about 50 times that day. And, he's just trying to get through the day. So, on that note, there's a lot of weird things going on, a lot of transparency from Xbox, and I think we got a lot to talk about, got a lot of big opinions to get into.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun show. I'm looking forward to it. Let's get it. Mag, first of all, welcome back, brother. You hurt yourself at work. You are now the one-armed bandit or the one-handed bandit. Unfortunately for you, this comes at the worst time possible because while there's gaming to be had, but thankfully for you, Vampire Survivors only needs one thumb, and I think you at least have that. How you feeling, brother?
Doing great, actually. You know what? I'm finding ways around it, so I could still play. I just can't play competitively. So I still found a way to use the left trigger and the left bumper. So I'm just using a different finger. And even if I get to use like the base a pad of my index finger without moving it, I actually can pull it off. So it doesn't matter. It'll be fine in a week. I'm like Wolverine. I heal very quickly. So, anyways, I can understand what Crispy's talking about, especially this time of year for you guys. The same thing with me. You're gonna have all those people going, so am I supposed to brine the turkey for 3 hours, or what am I supposed to be doing? I can understand you, Crispy, probably hearing that crap all day. Anyways, listen, a lot of great games out there, a lot of great things to talk about. I'm 13 hours into God of War. I'm enjoying it. But I guess what, folks? Spoiler alert, Horizon Forbidden West is still a better game. I said it, and I'm going to put it on Twitter. I'm going to watch people's faces melt like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Just wait for it. It's going to happen. But, Eddie, that's my opinion.
That's something to be said.
Hey, man.
No, listen, your opinion counts.
I'm just telling you. But either way, enough of that nonsense. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We got a great show. We got Hargeet, who's back again as almost like a regular guest, practically a panel member. Anyways, I greatly... I'm greatly jealous of you, the fact you're going on a long vacation. I don't get many of those doing what I do. So, anyways, guys, let's get into the show tonight.
Absolutely, and last and no way least, who I did this. I purposefully made this footage so Everborn Saga could feel at home. He can feel the knees going onto his shelf because let me tell you something right now. I don't care how much God of War sells. It ain't going to sell as much as the Blue Bomber. And that's a fact. And you know what? He's not here to defend himself. So I'm going to take advantage of that. And I know that Asante is listening all the way from his family vacation. In the words of the great Richard Pryor, tough titty, you're losing this bet, brother. So how you feeling, Everborn? You're on mute, Everborn. How dare you?
He's speechless.
He's
oh my God. I couldn't get off of mute. Jesus Christ. No. I'm great. I'm back from Disney. I just had to I'm 2 limbs short because costs an arm and a leg to go out there these days. And I heard they're raising prices again, by the way. Which my God. But anyway, happiest place on earth.
Indeed, yeah.
Bottles of water are $25 now.
A lot of people told me like, "Oh, the memories are priceless." I was like, "No, these memories definitely have a specific cost." But what are we gonna do? Anyway, I'm back and I have been playing Sonic since
I saw some of those boss fights, man. Those are epic.
Man.
Super Sonic,
I've been
84
playing
on the
since
scene.
Saturday, right? I think I'm like 18 hours in or something like that. I just finished the second island. I'm on the third island now. This may be one of the best games in the entire franchise, and I'm talking about the 16-bit era as well. My God, like I
Talk
get
that
it,
talk, brother.
The pop-in is offensive, right? I see the pop-in.
It is pretty bad, but that doesn't take away from the game for me. I'm sorry.
Right, and the reason I say this is because it's not like it's trees and leaves popping in, right? And blades of grass. I could live with that. But there's actual obstacles that you need to get to that pop in last second. And so that's the only complaint I have about the game. But you want to talk about the most fun I've had, maybe since Halo Infinite, in terms of just wanting to run around the world. Like I finished the first world and just ran around for a couple of hours just because if we're talking about music, we're talking about boss fights, we're talking about multiple paths. We're talking about traversal. We're talking about combat. It has everything.
It really
and I
does.
feel like most of the people that are like so crazy or apathetic about it is because they didn't play it, right? I don't know anyone who played this game and was like, no, it's not good, right? And I don't think, and I want to talk about another thing. I don't even know if this is a topic, right? Because you can say whatever you want about Metacritic. Who cares? And if you're a Sonic fan, you really can't pay attention to Metacritic. But did you know that the Metacritic score, there's 0 reviews for Xbox.
That's correct.
0 reviews for PC.
Yes.
Only 4 or 5 reviews for Switch.
Yes.
And 53 for
53
PlayStation.
currently.
What the hell's that all about? Out of curiosity,
Right?
anybody have an answer?
I have no idea.
You know what? Look, I'm going to say this. The channel is small. We're closing on 12K. I have been fortunate enough to be offered review codes. Now, normally I don't do them because I'm more of a live content guy, but I have done reviews. And every time that I have reviewed a game that's multi-plat, I have never been told that I can only have for one platform. Whoever the developer or publisher is to say, hey, Double Barrel Gaming, what platform of preference do you want? And I would 10 out of 10 times pick Xbox because that's my favorite platform. So it is shocking to me that if a small channel like Double Barrel Gaming can be offered a code for a game to be played on my choice, my platform of choice, and reviewed that way, how is it that 53 reviewers, sites and whatever, only picked PlayStation? It's again, it's a little one-sided considering that the Xbox does play some games better than the PlayStation 5. This happens to be one of those games.
And so furthermore, I get it. If you're reviewing Ragnarok at the same time, you may look at this as a 7, but this is not a 7 game, right? The cyberspace level design alone warrants an 8. That's before we get to the rest of it. And guess what? They're actually changing the formula of Sonic. I think the biggest thing to write home about this is that they've basically reimagined what a Sonic game is. Indeed. And it is not that they just threw him in an open world. That world is full of things to do. Full. So when you talk about an open world that is built around momentum and getting faster and finding the next rail to glide on, they really kind of did what I was asking them for, which is give me Jet Set Radio that's about finding the next grind and being about movement and all that stuff. And they brought it to an open world Sonic game. And I'm sorry, they pulled it off. And I'm not just saying this. I have no problem saying a Sonic game is trash. Sonic Colors, I hated that game, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going back. If I play a Sonic game, I know most of them were bad. This is not one of them. This game is fantastic, and I challenge anyone to play it that says that they disagree. Yeah, listen, just give it a shot. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, and John Wolf, shout out to John in the chat. He says that when this game drops to $40, potentially.
That's the thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No. By all means.
I was going to say I put a poll out there. Yeah. 500 people, 500 plus people did the poll. 54% said buy it, as straight up at the regular price. 46% said wait for a sale.
And how many of those 46% people are happy to pay $70 for Ragnarok?
Yeah, I don't know. I just put out the poll. I wanted to see what it was, and I got 500 plus people say it. So it's very even. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's like overwhelmingly one way or the other. So it's interesting. It's a very interesting demographic.
I agree. Listen, a shout out to Cullian Prime. He says it looks very barren. Dude, this is literally the beginning of the game. You're learning the moves. Once you get to a certain point, it's going to tell you the open world is going to open. When you see us start opening the map, because there's certain like mini games you have to do to open the map.
Yeah,
you're going to see the world. is
it's
going to
not
open up.
alive in the sense of like, oh, there's a lot of NPCs and things like that, right? That's not the kind of alive we're talking about. We're talking about being a playground for Sonic to move, and everywhere you look, there's a rail to grind on. There is a platform to jump through. There's a spring. There's a wall to run up. There's an enemy. No matter where you look, there's a place for him to go. And the idea is for Sonic to go fast, keep going. And you want to get faster, and you want to be able to not have to stop. And you learn the map so well that you can follow through. Like right now, if you press the, I know you're not playing, but if you press the button, you're actually supposed to press the left stick as a button, and then he'll do his dash attack to go after all those rings, and then you'll get to the next place, and the next place, and the next place. And so this is what I mean. If you have to try it. I know it's easy to dump on Sonic, but the game is actually really, really fun.
I'm having a blast. But listen, folks, we're going to get into the two topics immediately. Like I said, please, by all means, if you're finding the channel for the first time, and I see a lot of new names here, please consider subscribing. We are on the hunt for 12K. I don't know if we hit it this year. We're about a little under 600. I don't know if we can get that in a month and a half. That's a lot of subs. But listen, we appreciate what everyone has done for the channel in regards to your subs, your likes, and everything else. And of course, while you're here, we have 231 people here. Please, by all means, hit that like button. But let's get into the first topic. Now, this one is going to be a very subjective one because it's really a chalkboard that's empty kind of a topic. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the Game Awards. Once again, shrouded in controversy for a multitude of reasons. And everyone is going to have a different opinion. Everyone's going to have a different take on something that was announced or wasn't announced. That is, considered to be controversy in their own eyes. Now, the question I asked the panel is, with the current controversy, can Jeff Keighley ever get out under the umbrella of this is the PlayStation Awards? And I got to be honest with you, I don't know. I take nothing away from what Sony has done. They have had years, specific years that just dominated the charts with bangers, right? But at the same time, and it was brought to my attention by a troll, which will remain nameless, because that's what trolls do. They should be. They should be literally put away in the cupboard and not talked about. He put out a graphic that I thought was really interesting. Now, I believe it was as long as 20 years in length, and I could be wrong, but the Game Awards has been around for a long time. Here's something that's extremely interesting. Now, in some years, Microsoft deserved not to be a part of the conversation, though other years they did have games that could have been a part of the conversation and weren't. And what I'm referring to is this graphic dictated that in the history of the Game Awards, and think about this, folks, the history of the Game Awards, Microsoft has never had a title in the running for Game of the Year. Now, why is this a problem? Because last year, Forza Horizon 5, which is considered a masterclass achievement from Playground Games, did win Racer of the Year. But I think that was a joke because there weren't that many good racers.
Sorry,
that's not true.
Just one. Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, right? Because Ori got nominated, and so
yeah, that's not first party though. That's not.
Last year they had Psychonauts 2 and Deathloop.
Did they have? Okay, so then well, again, I look, at the end of the day, I only read the graphic. If I made a mistake, because they did have 2 in there, that's on me for not actually checking.
Well, okay. So what they're saying is, what the graph is saying is that like something that is exclusively on Xbox.
Oh, okay. So that's what it was. Okay. So thank you for correcting me on that.
When Ori gets nominated, they're saying, well, that's also on Switch. And when Psychonauts gets nominated, they're saying that's also on, right. And then Deathloop wasn't on Xbox at that time. But, I mean, this whole thing is stupid because they're like, if you know, like there were games that have been nominated, but you just have to look at, you know, what was the comp, like this year they should not be in there, right?
No, 100% they shouldn't be in there. That's their own fault. 100%. Yeah.
Right. And then other years, right? You got to, you know, they weren't going to get there in 2018 when Sony had Spider-Man and God of War, right? So 2019, I think Ori was in there, but what do you call it? Didn't get it. I'd have to double check that. Gears 5 maybe should have been nominated.
Yeah, that's one that was snubbed. A lot of people have a problem. See, really, what I was going for, and again, thank you for the correction. I definitely appreciate that because I don't want to get it wrong. Because you can only imagine what the YouTube comments are going to be. My point is, and the real point that I think is a lot of people have been making on social media is that Forza Horizon 5 was explained as originally. The original explanation was it didn't make it in time, right? Because it's supposedly the cutoff date was the 5th of November. It came out on the 5th of November. And of this year, obviously, God of War, which deserves to be there. Let's call it like it is. It's a masterclass achievement from that studio, came out on the 9th. So a lot of people are like, well, you know, the date is constantly changing. And then, of course, Jeff came out and he clarified and he said last year for Horizon 5 that not enough reviewers played it. And that was that. But again, remember, I'm using myself as an example here. I was tasked by Microsoft PR to review that game. I had that game 10 days before it came out to everybody. So if Double Barrel Gaming at that time that didn't even have 10,000 subscribers could get the game 10 days before and give a proper review, which I broke my rear putting that review together, it's probably one of my finest reviews. Why didn't other big entities get the game like I did? I don't really have a lot of connections in Microsoft, so you know they obviously valued my opinion enough to review the game, and I did, and I had it a minimum a week before. So again, I don't understand, but I want to go to the panel and I want to go to the chat and I want to find out your opinion on specifically your personal beefs with the Game Awards, and can Jeff ever pull out, you know, get out from the stigma of it being the PlayStation Awards? Because like I said, I've said this before, and I'll let you speak in a second. My thing with Jeff is I really do like Jeff. I think Jeff is incredibly important to the industry. I like what he's done with the Game Awards. I don't like some of his antics. I definitely don't like some of the way he conducts himself in the public forum. In the public space, simply because he's supposed to be someone that is supposed to be even keeled. I understand he's a PlayStation dude. I'm an Xbox dude. I don't have no qualms about that. But when you are as front facing as he is, you're supposed to do things a little bit differently, and that's where I think Jeff gets himself in trouble. But who wants to go first on this? Who was speaking? That was you, Mag?
Who? Anybody can go. I think Mag's on mute.
Oh, okay.
I'll go if you want. Fine.
Yeah.
Mag was on mute. God damn it! I was talking to myself for like 10 minutes. Jesus, excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. Sorry. Go ahead. You guys go first. I'm gonna listen.
So, like, I'm not sure I agree that the Game Awards are really that Sony centric. I mean, there's several times Nintendo games have made it, and
sure. Again, this is not my opinion. I'm just saying that, you know, as
there's an air of it, right?
There is,
and there's some of that.
Yes.
But there's reasons for it, right? So first, like, they started in 2014, right? And Microsoft was on a downward trajectory in 2014.
They absolutely were. Yes.
So like we just got to accept that Microsoft failed themselves.
Yeah,
and
100%.
That they didn't make any games worthy of that. So that's their fault, right? So if it was something that started in like the early 2000s and they skipped like Halo 1, 2, 3, I'd call foul. Like, come on. Those games are fantastic. They should have won, right? But it started in 2014, so fair enough. Those weren't there, right? And then as far as like Microsoft games that have made it to the Game of the Year, Outer Worlds was nominated, didn't win, and then Deathloop and Psychonauts. Now I get it; they're not exclusives, right? But that's not the end of the world. They were Microsoft games, and they did get nominated. I think the biggest problem, though, PlayStation has a lot of reach, which also means there are a lot of venues in the media world that are PlayStation centric, and they're the ones voting for this, right? It's not Jeff Keighley voting.
That's correct.
The media.
Yes.
And the media is going to have a tilt towards PlayStation, because they're literally worldwide the global standard. And
well,
then
they're number 7 in worldwide recognition for brand.
Yeah, exactly, right. So and so there are many media outlets that are going to have a tilt that way. Jeff also, unfortunately, because of that, he has to make sure that Sony
many
is not
media
pissed off with him.
outlets and regulators.
Yeah, and that's also a fair point, right? That's a whole other thing, right? And that's wrong, right? That should not happen. The regulators should be on the side of consumers, not any given company, especially one that has a near monopoly. But as far as media, I would blame them more. However, it's fair, right? If you're Push Square, are you going to have a media bias towards PlayStation? Well, duh, right? And so, like, there's many of those out there. There aren't as many Xbox ones, right? There might be some established Nintendo ones. And so you see Nintendo, gets nominated a lot. And this year they have, is it Xenoblade? I think that's theirs, right?
Yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
They're almost there all the time, right? And that's fair, right? Nintendo's had a high quality bar pretty much consistently, right? So, and they have games there all the time. So I don't see the necessary bias from that perspective. There is a bias in the industry in general, but it's there for a reason, right? PlayStation is the dominant player. If that were to flip, and then suddenly more, media is interested in what Microsoft is doing, well, then that would start favoring them. And that may not be a good thing either, right? But, and then look, they're looking at a slate of games that have a high potential to be high quality.
Yeah, well, again,
right?
I think to your point, Hargeet, and I'll let you continue in a second, you really just put the pin on the map here. That's a fantastic opinion, because next year, I think, is the outlier, as they would say, because Microsoft is going to be in a position where, on paper, they should have an absolutely astounding first-party banner year.
Yeah.
Now, whether that comes to fruition is entirely up to the developers working on these games. We can only hope, but please continue.
Yeah, so I mean, like, looking at Starfield, right? Bethesda Game Studios has a track record of the last 4 games that they released. I mean, Fallout 76 is something that really wasn't worked on by Todd, but Todd's games have been Game of the Year, right? They've been Game of the Year consistently. And so you'd hope with that pedigree. Now we just got, Somerville. that has a pretty good pedigree too, but Somerville doesn't look like it gained as much as far as critical notoriety, right? So it's looking kind of bad. But let's hope that doesn't happen with Starfield. But if you take that pedigree and say, well, that's a potential, right? Just like God of War had a good potential to be a Game of the Year nominee, I would expect that game to be there, right? And even if it were, it's supposed to come in the first half, but let's say it comes out mid-November, I think every media journalist is going to be waiting, because they know that game is coming, right? Forza Horizon 5 had the misfortune of being a racing game before it being a good game, right? And that was just kind of a thing. It turned out to be an awesome just game, right? And it could have been nominated. The problem is nobody ever thought about that, right? They expected that to just be, okay, it's a cool racer, we'll put it in the racer category, and we'll give it its props there. And then it turned out to actually be a fantastic just overall game, right? And I think that was a little bit of a hit there. And the media would have to have gone back afterwards, because unfortunately, just like now, the actual deadline for submitting all of your potential award nominees is Friday of this week, so in a few days. Yet the nominations are already out, right? So now you can go retroactively say, no, I changed my mind. Hey, Pentiment, which is actually reviewing pretty well, that is one of my Game of the Year nominees. Well, you'd have to go through a whole process to change what you've put in. And so it just didn't happen. And that's kind of how Forza Horizon 5 kind of fell through, right? And that's on Jeff. I think Jeff needs to fix this, right? Because you can't really have a Game of the Year nomination for 10 months. It's got to be the 12 months. Because for me, Stray versus what was skipped last year was Halo Infinite. I think Halo Infinite, to me, is way more a Game of the Year contender than Stray. But maybe to others, Stray is better. But to me, that's
Look,
just
I'll tell you this right now. Stray is a great game. I quite enjoyed it. I'm halfway. I want to say more halfway through it, probably closer to 3/4 through it. I've quite enjoyed it.
I loved it. I
very
loved it.
much so.
Yeah.
But the thing is this: you really do bring up a absolutely fantastic point. Is Halo missed it? They missed it because they released in December. And the question is now, granted, I have 12 days in Halo Infinite. It's my favorite Halo of all times. I reviewed it. I gave it a 10 out of 10. I will stand on that stone. It is not a problem with it. And I will take the arrows. That is a game that did not get a chance to be nominated. And
Exactly.
You're 100% right. Hargeet is, I mean, so far, I mean, we've only had a few people speak on it, but it is, to me, the point of the evening so far, simply because that Halo Infinite, again, I get it. They don't have the content for a free-to-play game like others do. And that has been addressed. People have been moved. New positions have been made. 343 is changing. There's lots of lot of moving parts there right now. The winter update is out. Not as stout as I would have liked, with only a 30 level season pass. But again, outside of that, if you're going to look at a game for what you play, you cannot tell me that game is not absolutely outstanding. When you talk about gunplay, it's as good as anything Bungie has put out. Again, personal opinion, but
so
Hargy, great stuff.
Yeah, can I?
Yeah, jump in. Absolutely,
right,
come on.
So the thing with Halo is, if they had released in November of last year, they would have been nominated. There's no doubt in my mind, right? Because everybody was high on the game at that time. It is only because the service aspect of it fell apart. And if it was going to be nominated this year, it wouldn't be based on the campaign that we all know and love. It would be based on how it performed as a service all year. And it was the butt of everybody's joke. And they had to basically fire half the staff and bring in a whole new management team and do all of that. So, I get it. It's not going to get nominated, nor should it have been nominated for this year, right? Because that would mean it would have to stand up and have the kind of players and interest that Overwatch 2 has, right? And it just doesn't have that. We have to call a spade a spade. So there's that thing. And the problem isn't necessarily Jeff Keighley. The problem is the industry, right? Because like Hargeet said, Jeff Keighley's not voting for these things, right? And so the industry is voting for these things. And listen, it sucks for Forza Horizon, but like you said, Hargeet, it is a racing game. Like, I'm not saying it's fair, I'm not saying it's right, but it's a racing game. Right, and most people,
but to challenge that particular point of view, Stray is considered a walking sim,
right? And I think Stray is going to win Game of the Year.
I doubt it's beating God of War, but
no, I want it to win Game of the Year just so I can watch the world burn. But anyway, the point is, I was surprised that Cult of Lamb didn't win over.
Yes.
Dude, are you kidding
That's a
me?
thing.
That was
people are really upset about that.
People are losing their minds over it.
Yes, Stray is a great game, and I haven't played Cult of Lamb, but I know some people that have that logistically as their game of the year.
Right. It had a huge launch. But anyway, the other point I wanted to make is, I don't want to be, and I know that's not what we're doing here, but this is more of advice to the Xbox community. I don't want to be in the business of getting mad at the Game Awards when we don't like what they're doing, because we all went around last year saying, "Holy crap, Xbox Game Studios is the number one nominated at the Game Awards,"
and they won Publisher of the Year.
And they won Publisher of the Year.
Yeah.
So it's not anyone's fault but Microsoft that they have strategically not released their games this year because they're trying to look like
ABK.
they're beggars to pass the ABK deal. That's
Exactly.
a Microsoft thing, and they have to take that on the chin. That's a sacrifice they're making.
Yeah,
So-
I don't necessarily think that them not having a potential game in that category is
Not even
the
one.
issue. I don't think that is the issue at all, because like Hargeet said, and you just said yourself, let's call a spade a spade. Pentiment is getting 10s. And I haven't played it. It's downloaded. I'm looking forward to trying it out. People are quite enjoying it, and that's awesome. But I'm not going to say that game should have been there. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there. I'm saying that Microsoft really closed the circle to as small as a dime in regards to being a part of this year's a conversation when it comes to Game of the Year, and that is in fact their fault. There's no denying that.
Right. And also to the Forza thing, it's not that it was too late for the cutoff, right? It's that like that was an excuse they gave. Oh, it came out late. A lot of people didn't have time for it. And that's an issue they can fix. But I think that's more of a logistical issue than anything nefarious, because at the end of the day, it's God of War Ragnarok, right? Like, people were calling that Game of the Year like 6 months ago, right? Before they saw a single frame of the game. It just, the 2018 was so good. People want to see the continuation of that story. So they're going to request that early, and it is going to, they're going to make sure they have enough time with it, is what I'm saying. So I think the awards this year, the nominations this year, aside from Stray, that's like the wild card. But I think it went like as expected. And I think Keighley puts on a good show, and I don't want to attribute bias on his part until next year, right? If we because like the thing is, he has been building a very close relationship with Microsoft, and they've been doing a lot of things, and Microsoft has been showing a lot of games there, right? Like, and Sony has not, right? Like, what was the last world premiere you saw at a Sony world premiere you saw at a Keighley show?
Premiere.
No,
Yeah,
think about that,
actually
right?
don't remember, to be honest with you.
So this is the thing. Microsoft got all the nominations last year. The only reason they didn't this year is because they shit the bed in terms of their first party releases. And next year they're gonna have, I guarantee you, next year they'll be the most nominated at the Game Awards. And they may win. We'll see how Spider-Man 2 does if it comes out, right? But Xbox fans, you got to take this one on the chin.
Yeah,
I don't think we can call it anything but that.
No, I absolutely agree. Let's bring in Wandering Dutch to the conversation. Dutch, you and I were chatting it up before we went, live, obviously in the green room. I mean, regarding the Keighleys being known as the PlayStation Awards. Again, I didn't make that term up. I'm simply, just reading what's being posted on social media. Do I agree? Again, it's hard to sometimes not agree, because Jeff puts himself in a position where he puts himself in the crosshairs for controversy when he does and says certain things that someone in his position probably should not say. He should just, say gaming is great. I like PlayStation, but it's gaming is important to everybody. He doesn't do that enough. I'm obviously, like I said, I think he's important to the industry. I really quite like the Game Awards, not so much for the awards. I am happy developers are getting their flowers.
Them trailers, baby.
I like the trailers, and I like the world premieres, and I like that Xbox has been front and center for 3 years in a row now. But what are your thoughts on what everyone has said, and what's your personal opinion or issue with the Game Awards in 2022?
My main issue with the Game Awards in 2022 is that none of the genres match the games that they've got in them. So you've got Sifu in there for best fighting game. It's not a fighting game.
What?
It's an action game for starters. You've got Triangle Strategy in an RTS category.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I agree.
Like, you've again, as we've mentioned, Stray's in there for Game of the Year. Though there's countless indie games that have come out this year that are far better than that. in my personal opinion, Metal Hellsinger was better.
Yeah, it's a good
But-
one.
There is so many indie games out this year, and there's substantially more indie games that have come out this year that have been better than Stray. It's a 5-hour game going against juggernauts in the industry. Like none of the games in that list are small by any stretch, and I appreciate indie games going into the actual main category, but Stray was not one of them. Stray is absolutely not worthy of a Game of the Year contender. I'm sorry. To those who enjoyed the game, that's fair enough. But when you compare it to the actual content and the stories available in all of the other contenders in that list, God of War, Horizon Forbidden West, Elden Ring, like for what they actually did for the industry, whether that be the gameplay, whether it be the story and the narrative, whether that be Elden Ring changing the Soulsborne genre for like forever, essentially, and bringing on what was a niche category up to 20 million players. Like it was the talk of the town, like the water cooler type of game. Those are games.
that game, as big as a juggernaut as it is, literally killed Horizon Forbidden West. Like it literally killed that game live in front of everyone. Like no one was talking about Aloy, and unfortunately, those developers, even though, like I said, I had some issues with the game, and you know, a lot of people did with the bugs, but you can't deny that the game was gorgeous.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I say, and this is why me and Mag differ, because Mag prefers so far, because he might change his mind the further he gets into it, but so far prefers Horizon Forbidden West over Ragnarok so far.
True.
And I'm obviously the opposite. I haven't had a good experience on Horizon due to performance issues. So naturally, of course, that's going to take away from my enjoyment of the game. So, and I've had a flawless gameplay with Ragnarok this so far, and I've loved the story. The pacing's far better. So I appreciate that one more than Forbidden West. But again, specifically this year, it's Microsoft's own doing for not being in the talk of Game of the Year in any category. I find it ridiculous, though, as Hargeet mentioned earlier. I think he's accidentally dropped out or had to go somewhere quickly.
Yeah, no. There's an issue with him personally. I think he's got to reset his router. But hopefully he'll be back in a moment.
As Hargeet pointed out, anyway, I've completely lost my train of thought. With regards to the games being there, I think the cutoff period is ridiculous. Like you shouldn't announce the nominations or the categories that they fill whilst the nominations are still open. That makes no sense. Like wait until the nomination period is closed, which is the 18th on Friday. Wait until that's done. People have had a chance to play and review the games, and then announce them. Right? Okay, they'll announce the nominations on the 19th. Like, I don't understand why a few more days he couldn't have waited for. And he does this every year. He announces the nominations days before it closes. Like, it makes no sense. What also doesn't make sense to me is how the same people who review all of these games, be it IGN, be it GameSpot, be it whatever it is, all of these huge sites, for instance, Pentiment, as we've mentioned there, getting 10 out of 10s on IGN and GameSpot and all of these Game Informer and all across the board. Like for an indie game, that's a huge deal, especially for, like he's mentioned, it wouldn't have happened without Game Pass because, of course, it's that niche of a title.
Yeah.
No one would give him the chance to make it real life. So he's had a chance to do it. It's come out to rave reviews by reviewers who've absolutely enjoyed their time with it. And that will be overlooked. It is like there's gone. But it does fall within the category period. It falls within the nomination space because it come out before the closing of the nominations. So, and the reviewers had the copies before the nominations. However, it's going to get forgotten. Even though it falls within the time period and could go to next year, realistically, 2023 is that packed. No one's going to remember it.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey,
and it gets overlooked.
You know what would be a worthwhile fix to that? have the show in January so
That's
you
yeah,
can just
Yeah,
absolutely.
I've been
calendar
calling for that
year.
for years.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
Absolutely.
if
absolutely.
it
Put up.
comes out this year,
Yep.
then it should be nominated. For example, Callisto Protocol could very well be a game of the year, but
Iron
it's
Light.
coming out December. No one's gonna remember it for next year, right?
High on life.
This is what the Oscars does.
Yes, High
It's
on Life is
calendar
another one.
year,
Yes.
and then they do the show in January or February after everyone's had a chance to see everything or whatever it is. It's
Absolutely.
weird. And one last thing, not step on your toes here. It's weird. A problem that I do have with the Game Awards is I do think it's really weird to prioritize like big budget AAA games. If you want the whole purpose of the Game Awards is so that we look at games as art. And if you're
Yep.
looking at it as art, it can't just be these big blockbuster, basically MCU style movie games, whatever, right? It should be, if it's art, then it's art, and it should be across the board, which is things like Vampire Survivor, along with God of War Ragnarok.
Yes, 100%.
Because we're talking, if we want to view this as art and not just a big marketing commercial for the next set of AAA games, then you should do that. And again, this is something I think the Oscars does this in the wrong direction, where they have a bias against big budget films, and so they only nominate artsy fartsy stuff. There needs to be a balance on both sides. I think.
No, that's good stuff. So
No.
Please continue, Wandering Dutch.
Yeah, no, that's to be honest, that's exactly what we covered this similar to this topic. We spoke about the Game Awards and our gripes with some of the issues
on your show this afternoon.
Yeah. And we said exactly the same thing as Everborn as well. To be honest, we said it should close at the end of December, and then like the tail end of the first week of January, you have the Game Awards show.
Yep, 100%.
Like nice and early, get it in there just after kind of the new year. First weekend after that. What a way to bring in the new year with the Game Awards show. You can show off the games or whatever trailers you want coming up for the next year. You announce who won all the best categories from the year before, and it covers the full January to the 31st of December. Not 10 months of, like, there's literally a month and a half of the year that is entirely discounted.
Yeah.
What about Evil West?
Listen, there's a lot of games that are going to miss it that you'll never hear. That again, Evil West could be the game of the year or the dud of the year. We don't know. It looks fantastic. I already bought it. I cannot wait to play. But Crispy, let's get your opinion on this. Everyone has brought some really great points. I'm interested to get yours. What are your personal and current beefs, not only with the Game Awards, but the Game Awards 2022?
I mean, this is not just 2022. Xbox number one. There's no excuse. I mean, we got what we got. I mean, they didn't come out with anything, so let's not go crazy over that.
I agree.
The one thing that drives me nuts is consistency. There is not enough consistency in the way they nominate and what the cutoff times are and all those things. Now, the January thing, I mean, that would be ideal. I think the problem is that the industry wants as much eyes on these games as possible right before Christmas. And I think that's the reason. I think the industry actually has a little pushback. Sony, Microsoft, they want, these games out there. And for all we know, Microsoft, they might not have anything for the actual awards, but we could see a lot from them at that awards. You know what I mean? And this will get people hyped. They will say, oh, I got to get a Series S now. Phil's already said, and we might get into that in some way, shape, or form, that Series X's are still going to be hard to find, but he expects Series S to be readily available, which is great. I mean, that's the whole point of it. You want to be able to allow people to play the games they want to play, and also Game Pass nowadays is looking even better and better in value. So it's one of those things. Like, and I feel like some of these games that really haven't gotten any recognition might be because they haven't been in Game Pass, some of them. I mean,
True.
especially on the Xbox side, like when there's 0 reviews. And that's where the argument, like we've always had this little argument, like, oh, Game Pass can hurt things in a way. Possibly, but also, these companies aren't going to give anybody review codes on Xbox. Come on. I mean,
Yeah.
so there's something up there. How can you be more consistent? When you see Forza came out at a certain date and then the following year God of War comes out at a date later, and then you go and say, well, why is it only certain types of games are considered for game of the year? Because if you're thinking of a racing game, you're thinking of Forza for a lot of people. Okay. And when Motorsports comes out, and if it's a masterpiece like Horizon 5 was, does it deserve to be in that conversation? I think it does. And I think this is where Jeff needs to figure out a way to say, hey, there are other types of games than, over the shoulder action adventure. Because you look at the majority of them that are nominated this year, and that is the case. Last year, I think we all felt that, there was a good diversity there. And that's where I go and say the consistency. It's just not there. And then you get into the, everybody's just, it's PlayStation awards, this and that. We don't want to have to think like that, but I think it really comes down to, the consistency of the Game Awards product, that they continue to get feedback and they continue to do the exact opposite. And they need to make that choice. Until they do that, I think somebody's always going to have some kind of issue. And then we're also going to see games that probably are readily, deserve to be in that conversation get snubbed because there's like a whole month that isn't considered, December's basically, you might as well not bring out a game as far as Game Awards concerned. And that's pretty sad. It really is.
Yeah, that's an absolutely fantastic point. Mag, I want to go to you now on this. Listen, I want to say this, folks. As a content creator, I pride myself in my work. I do work myself to the bone. Sometimes it's exhausting. Sometimes I actually lose on the back end of the deal because I don't get a chance to play as many games as I used to, and that's okay with it. I work 7 days a week on this show, right? And I love doing it. There's no complaints. My point is that when you have a team, and I can only paraphrase or potentially bring into the conversation smallly because I've never made a game, and I probably never going to be a part of making a game, right? Unless someone brings me in for my New York voice for a character.
Never say never, Boom. We got a lot of projects in the Everborn universe.
Then I will be more than happy to check that off. But as someone who appreciates games, not just for what the controller is in my hand, that really appreciates the hard work that gets so overlooked by the development community. We as, and I really mean this, I shouldn't even say we, because I know how I feel about the development community. I never have them in my crosshairs because it's because of them we have these amazing experiences, right? It's their dedication to their craft. They're artists, and they don't get enough recognition. And what's a little bit frustrating, and it does need to be addressed, is that there are teams that will release their games from Pentiment all the way forward that will not be recognized because they're not a part of the conversation because of a date, and a date that should, by all rights, be changed. This is an absolute fact, and it is, in my opinion, Jeff Keighley's Achilles heel. No pun intended. There is something to be said about 6 to 7 weeks of a year not being recognized for a game of the year conversation. It's stupid. I'm sorry. I don't know how else to put it, but it doesn't make any sense. But please continue, Mag.
Well, let's get into this. First of all, I like Keighley. I thought he did a great job in the. I thought he was a fabulous actor in that Muppets Haunted Mansion movie. Anyways, by the way, if you actually watch the Muppets Haunted, the hell's it called? The Haunted Mansion, the Disney one. Jeff Keighley is one of the severed heads that's on the podium. It's actually pretty funny. Anyways, enough of that. Listen, there's something we have to talk about here, and it's the fact that what he's done already to this point has been pretty monumental, of being able to get this thing from like basically an indie style show to something like borderline on the on the level of like Golden Globes and Academy Awards. So to pull off something like that, the guy's putting in the work. Now, the other thing is we got to understand this man's hustle and flow here. Okay. You do at the same time, you're going to have to, like, I understand what we're talking about here, but you have to follow the attention of the people. Right. And the thing is, more often than not, the attention from the people is on Sony and Nintendo. Why? Yes, there is a bias. There's obviously a bias. There's no question about that. Anybody who says that doesn't exist, they're just lying to themselves. There is obviously a bias there. However, where did the bias come from? Where did it come? Where was it based from? It came from a place because they were consistently putting out good products, and they still are. And that's the thing. That is something that a lot of, like, I've come to this realization over the last couple of years, actually, the more I think about it. And I'm like, yes, of course there's a Sony bias. Sony has the brand recognition. And I understand. I'm going to dive into a little bit of that in a second. But the thing is, you can't argue the quality that those two companies are putting out. I'm not a Nintendo guy. Okay. I mean, I used to be a Nintendo guy when I was a kid. I do not like Nintendo products now. I have 2 Switches in the house. Those are for my kids. I detest that thing. I wish I could smash it, like just walk by and just kick it, like whenever I see the Switch lying on the floor. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that. It's like that dog that you don't like. You just go by and give it a little kick in the ass. And like, get out of here. Yeah, I hate that stupid thing. I hate the Switch. Anyways, the point is, but they make good quality product. It's just not my thing, and I that's fine. Whatever. Sony, on the other hand, is my thing because it's very close to, like, the 2 ecosystems that I put my time in, which would be Xbox and PlayStation, right? So here's the thing. If you actually look at it, you've got Xbox has to, 2022, I'm going to agree with Everborn here. Okay, let's give Xbox a 2022 mulligan, okay? Right. Specifically because they're trying to look like, oh, look at poor old me, while they're trying to get ABK, right? And that, it's all,
it's all in console, 7th in PC, right? Nowhere in mobile.
Exactly. What are they doing? Like, I mean, Jesus, if they're trying to sell the sizzle, it's working, right? I mean, like, they're trying to make themselves like, oh, I'm just a poor old boy. Look at me, right? And that's what they're doing. I get it, okay? But moving forward, after this thing is done, 2023 starts, let me tell you something. If you have games that cannot match Ghost of Tsushima or your Last of Us or your God of Wars or your Horizons or your whatever that they're coming up with on the Sony side, or the Breath of the Wilds and all those kind of and the Mario games and whatever else they got, and that ridiculous game that you play, Boom, what's it called? The Animal Crossing. Sorry, I can't deal with those. I can't deal with those voices.
I love Animal Crossing. I play every day.
I know. I just busted your chops. But anyways, in all seriousness, if you can't make games that match to this level, well, then there's always going to be a bias. And therefore, by definition, it's not a bias if you're not putting out products that are doing that. Now, I understand they're working on that. Obviously, that's where your Senua's Sagas are coming in. That's where those will be Game of the Year nomination kind of games, right? So, don't get my words twisted, everybody, especially people in the chat. Don't get all crazy on me, all right? But I'm just saying, or your Starfields or whatever you got coming out. Those are all games that they're going to be working on that are going to obviously be Game of the Year's contenders, just like Hargeet said, okay? Anything that Todd Howard puts out ends up as Game of the Year. Why would Starfield be any different, right? So, and they gave him the extra time to give him that polish, so it is a guaranteed Game of the Year, right? So that's exactly what they're doing. I get it. But here's the thing. If you don't do it consistently, then you're not going to be part of the conversation consistently, and that's the problem. Right? Sony's been doing this for decades, and they've been doing it better than everybody else for the most part. Not everything. Xbox has had their moments, right? With the earlier Gears of Wars and stuff like that. And of course, the Halos and all that. They had their Game of the Years and whatever. But consistently, no. Don't lie to yourselves. That they have not consistently done this.
And you're onto something. You're absolutely 1,000% correct like that. They again, we could.
They have their spots, brother. But they're not. It's not every year. They might have a year where they like last year, for example. I thought last year was fantastic. Like what's it called? The Psychonauts 2. That was my top 2 Game of the Years of last year. I adored that game, and I stood up and clapped and said, "You know what? This is a Game of the Year right here, Microsoft. This is how you do it, right? This is what we're going to need going forward." Like I said,
and it got nominated, right?
And it got nominated. And guess what? And then they were Publisher of the Year last year and everything else. But look at the year after. They just went from number 1 to last place.
From hero to zero.
Yeah, there you go. Just like an 80s sitcom. Yeah, from hero to zero. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Why? Lack of consistency. And we understand the reasons why, but I'm just saying it was it. Now, as for the media, here's another thing. When you're talking about the reason why they cover Sony more, or even, even when they review the games more, or the Game Awards when they're voting and everything else, they're also doing it for their own benefit. Because as Hargeet was saying earlier, Sony is a global brand that people recognize, right? So when they look at that, and it's the brand recognition and, of course, the quality of the titles, when people are talking or reviewing those games for their own self-benefit, those media sites and those media pundits, they're the ones that are getting traffic to their sites based on that. And then what ends up happening? Then it benefits Keeley as well, because then those same people are going to tune into his show. It is everybody is literally scratching each other's back. This is a Hollywood version of the
Boys
video
Club?
game industry.
Would you consider the video games boys club?
Well, yeah, like it's turning into Hollywood.
Right.
Hollywood doesn't do anything unless they get something for it. No one does anything out of the goodness of their heart. Right. And nobody gives a crap about the indie guy unless the indie guy's making everybody else money. That's how these big, I'm sorry, but that's the absolute truth. And it sucks because there's a lot of casualties of war that make either great video games, indie video games, or great indie films. But if they ain't making the money, they ain't getting the recognition. And that's because they're not helping each other out. And that's what these media guys are doing, the same thing in this industry right here. Now, the thing is, by the way, everything I just said there, by the way, the toxic Sony guys, please clip it all so you can touch yourself later to all the stuff I said of negative about Xbox. But anyways, here's the thing. In regards to what you guys were talking about doing the end of the year thing, yes, I agree with everybody who said it so far about why not make the cutoff just like the Academy Awards. The Academy Awards cutoff is Christmas Day, to be exact, not the 31st. It is the 25th of December. Okay, and that's why if you guys ever see, like when Spielberg releases a big movie or whatever, or James Cameron or whatever, they always release on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
The reason why is because that is the official cutoff for the Academy Awards. So anyways, you do something like that. Yes, you could put that into January, maybe February, something like that, so that you could get a more honest version of Game of the Year, just like you said, Boom. Why cut off the last 6 weeks of the year and call it Game of the Year? Now, there are ways around it. If Jeff is not going to budge on it, then don't release your game in the last 6 weeks of the year. If you don't think that the game is going to make the cutoff, delay it into the early parts of the next year, so that you will be in the conversation. Elden Ring came out in February. Yeah. I'm just saying, I understand money's at risk and everything else. They got to keep their lights on, but at the same time.
So Mag, let me back you up for a second.
Yes.
Because when movie studios have an Oscar candidate, they build all their marketing and their release date around the October to December window. That is what is considered in Hollywood Oscar season.
That's Oscar season, yes.
Because there are a lot of great movies that get like 99 on Rotten Tomatoes in February, and then no one's talking about them around Oscar time. So technically, even though it's up until Christmas, it's really October to Christmas.
Yes, and that's why they re-released.
The movie studios know that, and they release the movies around that. And this is why you can have big $20 million actors like Leonardo DiCaprio and things like that do an Oscar movie, because it's not going to make a lot in the box office until it gets nominated or wins Best Picture. And then they make it up that way and in the ancillary market sales, because they can use the fact that it was nominated or it won an Oscar. So they are designing their business models around that.
Right.
If
that's what you're looking for, then you got to play the game that's put in front of you.
Yeah,
if you're not interested in that.
Yeah,
sorry,
but you know what? My problem. I mean, what you're both saying makes perfect sense. My problem with that theory is that it's called Game of the Year 2022, which means that every game in 2022 should be recognized regardless of when it comes out in 2022. That, to me, is the inherent problem, and that is why there's always going to be questions as to how he does his business. I understand that a lot of this is advertisement by his Hollywood friends to sell games and sell consoles and make money, millions and millions of dollars.
Of course, it's all money at the end of the day.
It's all money, absolutely. But at the end of the day, the controversy is there, and it will never go away, especially when you start talking about game of the year. When you say game of the year, you have to represent every game that came out this year. It's not game of the first 10 months.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. What I'm saying is I'm just trying to explain why it's not. Like, I'm not agreeing with it. Like, I know some people in the chat are probably going, man, Mag's crazy. I'm not. I literally am agreeing with you guys, and I agree with Boom too. It should not be game of the 10 months. That doesn't even sound good, right? Game of the year sounds a lot better, doesn't it? So it should be every game, just like Everborn said. Callisto Protocol, and I'm sure, Boom, you're the same way. I mean, you and I have the same taste in games.
We can't wait for that.
I can't wait to play that game. I'm dying to see the reviews because I'm praying that it matches up to what my anticipation. But the thing is, I get it. I get it that game is not going to be part of that, and that sucks. But I'm just trying to explain, or at least from my perspective, and some of the Hollywood background I have, is that I understand why it's not. Now, the last thing I was going to mention, sorry, very quickly here, is that the reason why they will not do January, February to do these shows is because statistically speaking, and this again goes with Hollywood and television, okay? Let's just say Hollywood in general, is that statistically you get higher viewer ratings in December than any other time of the year. Except for an event
people on vacation, things of that nature that allow them to go see these films.
Or they're home.
Yeah.
They're home with family and they're watching TV. They're hanging out. The engagement is up at that time of year. You know what I mean? So what the thing is, it's no mystery. I'll give you an example this year, guys. It's no mystery that Yellowstone Season 5 Part 1 ends in December. It's a 7-episode series, right? Part 1 is anyway. It's no mystery that Yellowstone 1923 begins in December. Why would you pick that time? Why not release in the summer? Why not release in October? Because the numbers statistically are always there in December. Keeley did not pick December out of a hat. He's following the trends. So that's what I'm saying.
He is following the trends, but at the same time, like I said, again,
I don't agree with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. First of all,
you know what I mean? I'm just saying that's where it's coming from his perspective.
And like I said, listen, at the end of the day, this is not show friends, it's show business.
Goddamn right.
So,
he said the thing. He said the thing.
I said the thing. There you go. But listen, let's move on to the second topic. We have almost 400 people here.
Just 1 second before you move on. The elephant in the room of why the whole Game Awards is a Travis Schumachery is that Sonic Frontiers was not nominated for anything.
Listen, I'm right there with you. I agree with you.
I just don't think there were enough. I just don't think there were enough reviews out in time, to be quite honest. I don't think it had anything to do with the quality of the game. I don't think they had enough reviews.
You see the quality of the game in front of you, brother. I mean, listen.
I've been watching for an hour. It's fantastic. It looks great.
This is what I'm saying. People just
it has poppin'. Yes, it does. Should that happen?
I'm not even noticing it. Really.
No. But that's not the point.
Boom is wearing the Timbs. Like
I'm wearing the Timbs. That's right. I got the treasure hunter outfit on, and I'm not ashamed to say that I did that. But
wouldn't the Timbs weigh him down?
Yeah, to that point though, it did kind of come out at the same time as God of War,
100%,
which is a large game. Yeah. And reviewers, I mean, they have to pick which one they're going to review.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think a lot of reviews. There weren't enough reviews. How many reviews came out for Xbox? 1?
Yeah, it's up to like 8.
Oh, it's up to 8.
No, it's getting a 58 so far on for Xbox.
Well, listen,
but I'm hoping that changes. But
I agree. I think change needs to happen. I think it needs to happen not for fanboys, not for podcasters, for developers. I think at the end of the day, they're the important part of the conversation because they make these experiences for us. They make these games, these worlds that we live in, and that we get away from real life. That kind of sucks sometimes, right? So I think that when you say Game of the Year, everyone has to be represented fairly. Right now, it is not the case. It is a problem that needs to be addressed. Jeff Keighley has been asked about it. He's been very coy on his response, which I do not like. I think that he is, obviously, yes, this is a money thing. But at the end of the day, if you're there for developers, it can't be for the developers that release their games in the first 10 months. It just cannot.
Sorry, I got one last example. 30 seconds,
Sure.
Boom. I swear to God, 30 seconds. There is a movie, an Indian movie called RRR. Okay? If anybody's seen it, fantastic. Here's the thing. They want the notoriety in North America with that film. It's doing fantastic all over the world, but they want the North American notoriety. So guess what they just did? They re-released it just now in the United States in the theaters because they want that notoriety of being able to get Best Foreign Film at the Academy Awards.
Of course they do.
Okay?
Yeah.
So there you go. So I'm saying here's a movie that's quality and everything else. It's a great movie, by the way. 3 hours if you're into it. But here's the thing. They want to play the game, right? They want to play the game. They could have easily just said, nah, forget it. We released it earlier in the year. It's on Netflix. You can watch it on Netflix now, this and that, whatever. But they're like, no. We want to be part of the game. And so now they're playing by the rules of the Academy.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to, but I'm saying there's an example of, you know what I'm saying, of a film, which you could, of course, turn that into a video game. The same thing. You can say you bend your own rules if you want to be part of the conversation as well. So, I mean, there is that. Sorry.
No,
So,
it's good stuff.
Taking your thing a little further, though, right? I mean, you mentioned the Academy, they wait till the 25th, right? That's cool. And they come out in, I think it's February, whatever they do their show, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem with doing what Keeley is doing is the fall is when the majority of games technically come out, right? So now it's changed, right? Now we get games all over the place, but the fall period, October, November, is usually when we got most of our games. And some of those big games come out after the review time. And I think that is the big missing point here, right? If your blockbusters, as far as movies, were all coming out in October, November, they don't. They come out in summer, right? They come out in June, July, August. That's when they're putting out the big movies, right? And then maybe there's the Cannes Film Festival or whatever. All these things they're happening at different times, not during November and December. And in our case, the big time is supposed to be October, November, December. And, our games are coming out now and they're not being covered. I think that's the big miss, right? And look, it is as you pointed out, Game Awards has taken over the Academy Awards. Okay. Like Academy Awards had 10, 15 million viewers. He had 85 million.
It was ridiculous how many people actually tuned in.
The thing is, though, the consumption of video games and the consumption of film are different. Avatar 2 is not going to take me 90 hours to watch.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It's going to take me 2 hours and I go home. I can watch 6 movies in one day.
Exactly.
You can't do that with the games. So I get your point. You make sense there.
Yeah,
so you got to be able to consume it ahead of time.
Like you were saying, Boom. Like he needs to kind of come up with a better answer somewhere, make some sort of compromise. And I think a lot of it is holiday season. We want to have all the advertisement for people to go buy systems in the Western world anyways, right? In the Eastern world, it's probably more Chinese New Year, which is more February, right? But like here, it's Christmas time. That's the big thing. So you want Thanksgiving through Christmas. We want to get all that stuff in there, right? Fair enough, but maybe he should consider, is it viable to move it out to January and February and catch the Asian market? It may work, right? He'd have to test it one of these years and see what happens. With the pandemic, I think it's changed everything, and they could change and try different things now. So it might be viable to do it in a different time frame.
No, I mean, listen, a great point by everyone. This was an amazing topic. An hour and 20 minutes in, and we still have one of the bigger topics that has gripped the gaming society. I've been called a shill by many people, saying that's all I talk about. You guys, again, read the YouTube comments, folks. It's pretty ridiculous. I actually stopped because when fanboys and fangirls don't get their way, they get vicious. So I stopped reading the comments because, people are knuckleheads. But before we get to the big topic of the show, Shooter 2853 drops the first super chat of the day, and I got to see if anyone else did. Thank you for the very generous $10 super chat. He says, "Hey, Boom, Mrs. Boom, Wandering Dutch, Crispy, Mag, Everborn, and Hargeet. So good to catch a live show instead of repeats." Well, thank you so much for that. And if you did, in fact, drop a super chat, I will get to it for sure. I just have to find it. But I do want to start this topic. And I want to go first to Mag on this one, because obviously I don't know if he gets out of here exactly at 9 o'clock. This show is not ending at 9 o'clock exactly because, the first topic took up a lot of time, and we still have to get to what happened this week. Now, obviously, if your head has been in the sand, Phil Spencer has once again basically dropped the hammer on any doubt that PlayStation gamers will have a chance to play Call of Duty moving forward. He sat down with The Verge's podcast known as Decoder, and the interviewer asked all the tough questions, and in some cases, Phil Spencer, who is probably tired of talking about this, actually cut him off and confirmed that yes, Call of Duty is going to remain on PlayStation. And if they want, he even said it. If they want it streaming wise, he'll do that. They don't have to have Game Pass. He confirmed that. He said we're not going to pull a Fugazi. There are not going to be any rope-a-dopes or behind-the-back shenanigans. It's literally going to be, if Call of Duty is out, it's going to ship on PlayStation. But see, that's not the question that we're going to cover. And again, I got to give credit to Pong Soul. It's listening to their show this weekend that had me tantalized with the theory that he came up with. And if you're just tuning in now, and again, we're getting closer to 350 people, please hit the like button. I'd greatly appreciate it. And a lot of new faces here. Hit the subscribe button and help us get to 12K. It'd be greatly appreciated. But the question that he proposed was how, and I don't want to use the word desperate, how willing is Microsoft regarding concessions? What are they willing to offer up to the FTC, to the EU, and of course to the CMA in regards to quote unquote concessions or consent decrees, as they will, so that Sony, which again in many cases both for the CMA and the EU Commission, those two entities have looked like they're more concerned with the Sony's position rather than the position of consumers, and that is illegal. Again, tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the new episode of X Vlog Live, I'm sitting down with not only the infamous King David of the Iron Lord podcast, I'm sitting down with lawyer extraordinaire himself, Hogue Law, and we're going to be breaking all of these things down, and he's going to go into full detail to explain why this could potentially not win the case for Microsoft, but definitely give regulators a problem when you consider the word bias. But what Pong Soul proposed was that he felt, and he said he didn't agree with it, but he wanted to put it out there into the ethers, that would Microsoft be willing to turn around and offer up Call of Duty to be a perk for PlayStation Plus premium members when it launched in the Game Pass? That's the question we're gonna cover. Everyone is probably going to be going bonkers right now in the chat.
Just let me know when I can go off.
You go. You know what? I want to go to Mag first, and then we will come to you because Mag definitely got to bounce out at 9:00 because of his position. Mag, I think that if that happened, it would be a travesty of justice. Microsoft is the company that is spending $70 billion and investing in their services, so they should decide and have first crack on where it goes. I think Call of Duty staying on PlayStation is enough. I think if PlayStation gamers want to buy it, they can buy it. But I think that the ultimate goal for Microsoft moving forward is to move people into their service. And the way you do that is you offer up something as important as Call of Duty in your streaming service to get people to come over and subscribe. The same way Netflix spends millions of dollars on IP, the same way that you're getting Marvel things in Disney Plus, the same way that you're getting DC films and TV shows for their heroes, obviously in HBO Max. So there is something to be said about that being wrong on every level. But what is your thoughts, brother? Did Mag have to leave? He might have had a situation. Hopefully he's okay. Everborn, take it away, brother. You were very passionate about this. We were talking privately. We'll get to the Mag in a second. Talk about it.
All right. So I love Pong Soul. He's one of the most positive guys in the community. Me and Kay have been playing. By the way, Kay, I saw Kay Asante creeping in the chat.
There he is. He's there. He's here. He's
Shout
here.
out to Kay Asante, live from Ghana. Pong Soul, you're wrong. I disagree. We gotta do this this crossover with GCP and scripts and your show. But furthermore, I think that's the one thing where Microsoft does not concede. And I went on record a couple of weeks back saying I think all of this is going to end up with non-significant concessions after they goes to phase 2. But for the purpose of this conversation, I don't think that's something Microsoft would agree to. Phil has said he would consider some sort of a longer-term contract because this is a negotiation. But in that interview, we already know. I've been saying this for a while. We've all been saying this. Phil Spencer, Hoglaw said it. Now Phil Spencer came out and said it. And nobody's talking about that. All they talk about is he's going to go long-term on PlayStation. He didn't say long-term. He said longer term, right? And that's the first thing. Now, the next thing is he said, no, we don't have to have any contract. Our contract is not with Sony. It's with our customers. And no, we don't have to write that down. And if regulators want that, then that is a different conversation. But if it's a requirement of the deal, they'll consider doing something a little bit longer. They're not folding to Sony. I've seen a lot of people say that. But again, they are buying the company, right? They are spending the $70 billion. And by the way, God of War in the UK, where this is all the big deal that seems to be very worried about this deal and Sony's well-being, God of War just outsold COD in its launch week.
That's
Modern
correct.
Warfare, which was the biggest COD.
Yes.
Right? And you want to talk about things that will come up in these things. The CMA actually has to prove, as well as the European Commission, they actually have to prove this. This is what the phase 2s are for. Yes. So not only do I think this thing will close, I think it will close with minimal concessions. I'm saying it on the record again. But even if there was a pushback, the pushback will not be around Game Pass. Now, if there's anything Game Pass related, maybe they'll say for some amount of time, Microsoft can't put it in Game Pass, but there is no way on God's green earth that regulators are going to force Microsoft, and Microsoft does not do everything in their power legally to not agree with that or just blow the whole deal up to say that they have to put this thing in PlayStation Plus. There's no way, because there's really no purpose of buying it. And Phil Spencer is saying, oh, yes, we bought it for King. We bought it for Blizzard because King makes all the money. Actually, Activision still makes the most money. You can go and look at that. And most of that money that Activision makes is from COD. I just was looking at a bar chart earlier that showed the breakdown of Blizzard revenue versus King revenue, and King is up there, but overall it is still Activision. It is a large part, right? So the thing is, we know how serious Microsoft is about Game Pass. We know how serious they are about using this as a long-term bet. You're not, if you're taking exclusivity off of the table, you're literally taking all the other benefit. If you say you have to also offer this in PlayStation Plus, it's just not going to happen, Boom. It will.
I agree.
I think it'll stay on PlayStation. At the very least, I'm not saying it won't be, like Minecraft, but the language is, again, no one in any business contract would do anything in perpetuity, but the language is, as long as people want to play it. And if most people move over to Xbox, then they'll look at that decision later. But that's a discussion for another day. Right now, They will put it on PlayStation. What the fight will be is can they put it in Game Pass on day one? Maybe regulators will try that, right? But even I don't think that that's a fight regulators will win. A regulator cannot say they're not going to be able to force Microsoft to put COD on another subscription service. It's never happened before in the history of any purchase. Disney, Fox, WB Discovery, Amazon, MGM, nowhere ever. That's never been a requirement of any merger agreement where you're forced to put your products on another person's service. It's just not a thing, right? So let's keep history and facts in our mind before we say that they have to do this and they have to do that. What they had to do was go to a phase 2. We shall see, and we saw what happened in Brazil when they went to phase 2. Now the next thing, right? Regulators are not going to be able to make the case that it is better for consumers that they should have to pay $70 for a game because one company wants to keep their number one position.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I agree.
This is the forget about the whole implications of bias. I will leave that for other people to discuss or whatever. But what I am saying is there is no normal, sane person doing their job that is going to say it is better for consumers for them to have to pay full price for a game that they may not even like. So what Microsoft is offering is a cheaper option, right? Now you can say not having this content, if that's the case you want to make, it will hurt the, what do you call it? And that's a specious case to begin with, which we'll see how that turns out. But you cannot make the case that on top of having to have it on your platform, Microsoft also can't put it in Game Pass. It's not going to happen. Forget about it.
No, I like what you're putting down. I mean, listen, you make a lot of sense. And Hoglaw in his last video said something that exactly to your point, it's going to be hard for regulators to try and suggest that this is going to somehow be bad for consumers. And he and you and anyone that agrees with that is 100% right. But Mag, we got your back, brother.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this? Pong Soul said on Living Split Screen that he believes that this deal is so important to Microsoft that the concession, the most ultimate concession or consent decree that they would be willing to offer up to get it done is have PlayStation Plus Premium get Call of Duty the same day that Game Pass. I disagree. Matt, Everborn disagrees. Most people in the chat disagree. What are your thoughts on it?
First of all, Pong Soul is a criminal and a scumbag, so we shouldn't listen to anything he says. I'm just kidding. I was talking to him yesterday. He's a fantastic guy. We were chatting yesterday about my injury, so we were having a good laugh about it. But anyways, love you, Pong. I hope you're listening. Anyways, here's the thing. There's absolutely no way it's going to happen. You're not going to spend $70 billion to put it on somebody else's service. You're putting it, you could put it in their ecosystem where they are still going to make their 30%, right, from the sale, because and it's not about making the money back, okay? Microsoft can make $70 billion over breakfast.
Yeah,
okay,
they could.
so it's, you know what I'm saying? So it's not about, well, they need to make their money back, so they got to charge. No, it's not about that. It's about the rules. If you own something, then someone else is going to be, it's like a landlord letting you live there for free. That's not going to happen. You got to pay the landlord. Right. So the thing is that's what's going to end up happening. They're going to have to pay. Sony's going to have to pay the 30%. Microsoft is going to put that revenue towards what, folks? That's right. It's going to show up as revenue in the gaming division. And what are they going to do with that? That's great for investors. So when the investors have their meetings, okay, and they could see that they could plug those numbers into there to make their product look that much more, you know what I mean, attractive for other investors to get involved, right? So that's what they're going to utilize that for. It's all to make themselves look better. And the thing is, at the end of the day, like I said, you don't spend $70 billion to be Robin Hood, okay? You're not gonna be throwing the money around to the poor who can't get. No,
hey, Mag.
Yeah.
Next thing they're gonna say, I don't know if regulators are gonna allow them to release COD on Xbox at all.
Exactly.
Make
like
it Sony exclusive.
it's getting more preposterous by the day. And the reason why it's getting more preposterous is because basically at this point, it's turned into 10 straight months of speculation, right? So now it's getting wilder and wilder by the day, right? So that, it's just like, I don't want to get into that. Sorry, never mind. I'll shut up because I was going to say something that's probably going to piss somebody off. But anyways, the thing is that at the end of the day,
Mag.
no, I can't say it. Okay, I'm going to say it. Anyways, here's the thing. Okay, when someone was writing the Bible, I'm pretty sure Jesus wasn't walking on the water. But if you keep rewriting the history over time, the next thing you know, the guy's flying like Superman. Like, come on. You know what I'm saying? So this is the same idea. People are speculating, and it's getting wilder and more ridiculous because we don't have an answer.
Mag said he got drunk at a party one day, and now we're turning water to wine.
Turn the water to wine.
There you go.
Like, come on. But anyways, the thing is, at the end of the day, it's because we don't have the answers. And because of that, I think that, like I said, the speculation is getting wilder, and people are like, maybe they're going to have to keep conceding. They don't have to concede anything, to be quite honest. And in fact, if you actually look at it, maybe I'm not going to talk about from a legal standpoint because I'm not a lawyer. But what I was going to say is that there really is, just like what they showed in Brazil, there are no concessions because there's nothing that they're doing wrong. Because at the end of the day, this is all about consumers, is it not? Monopoly.
Supposed to be. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
supposed to be. First things first, they want to make sure it's not a monopoly. We've already established it's not a monopoly, right? We've been talking about this, till we're blue in the face. No pun intended to the man on screen right now. Keep going, Sonic. Anyways, the thing is that you could talk. It's not a monopoly. The other thing is, what's the next important thing? Is that the consumer is not getting screwed, right? Or that that is clearly not an issue, because as it stands right now on PlayStation, you're paying $70, $80, $100 for Call of Duty, depending on which version you buy. Right now, and Microsoft doesn't own them. Microsoft owns them next year. Guess what? You're still going to be paying 2 years from now, $70, $80, $90, and $100 for the game. So literally nothing has changed. They have not raised the price. Well, at least theoretically they won't. I don't think they will. That would be really foolish. And they haven't done anything else. And then on the Xbox side of things, you're getting it in a subscription service, for Christ's sake, and possibly PC. So therefore, there are no other concessions that are required. So that by even thinking about putting it on PlayStation Plus, there's absolutely no reason for it, because you haven't locked the gamers out of the game. You haven't locked Sony out of having the game and then keeping people on their ecosystem, which I don't think it will, but it won't forever. People will start moving over at some point. I mean, you could already see the power of a subscription service. Look at the sales, guys. Look at the sales on Xbox for like Sonic and some other games that came out. Xbox players are not buying games as much as they are on Sony and Nintendo. Now, the funny thing is, if you actually look at a game like Sonic, for example, okay, you could say, oh, well, there's a lot more PS4s out there. Yeah, but you talk about PS4 and PS5, then you're also talking about on the Xbox side, Xbox Series X, S, and the One. And there's still only like 8% of sales are going to Xbox. Guess why? It's not because Xbox gamers don't buy games. I think, well, they're not right now, but what I'm saying is that I think they're getting used to that subscription model where they're waiting for these things to come onto those subscriptions, right? So therefore, anyway, when I'm plugging that, the reason why I'm bringing that up,
disagree there. I'm actually debating about that with somebody on Twitter.
Are you now?
Yeah.
Well, you just started.
Crash, by the way.
I'm just saying.
We'll take that offline. I disagree.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. I'm just thinking that people are starting to become compliant with it. Like, look at, for example, regardless of the fact that like Disney movies, their quality, I mean, I think their quality has gone down with diminishing returns. But there's an argument to be made there that a lot of people already are conditioned to the fact that the movies between 30 and 45 days are on Disney Plus. Right?
And you know what, to add to everyone's point about it not going to PlayStation Plus Premium, Justin Sayin, who was a guest yesterday on the Xbox Factor podcast, said, are we forgetting that PlayStation doesn't put their own games into their service database?
Yeah. Hey, thank you. What did you say that in the chat? I totally didn't see it.
Yeah, it's here. Yeah.
Yeah, so like there's another example, right? I mean, they're not even putting their own games in there. Why would they get access to a game that Microsoft spent literally a record amount of money to get. And the reason why they're trying to do it, we understand. They're not doing it as, as a service for us. I mean, they're trying to make money for themselves. They're trying to attract more people to their service. I understand. But at no point do they need to put it on PlayStation Plus, because they don't have to concede to anything, because they're not breaking any rules. That's just the way I see it. They're not breaking any rules.
See, this is the thing people don't pay attention to. And if you read the Brazil documents, and I know these are different jurisdictions in different countries and things, but there are, like you're saying, Mag, there are actual rules, and you have to breach a certain level before it raises concern for competition to where you have to take some action, right? So they have to go and look at, well, what are Activision sales? What are Xbox sales? What are these game sales? And what percentage of the market will they have? What percentage of the workforce will they have? What percentage of game sales will they have? And there is no metric. If you're looking at data right now, you can go back and look for historical data for whatever number of years. There's no metric you can find where they're going to breach those levels of making them a competitive threat where there's a concern for foreclosure. So we're doing all this phase 2 stuff because we have to. Once the numbers go into it, like, all this stuff is going to be much ado about nothing. But I'm sorry, Mac. Go ahead.
No, that's all I was. That's all I was trying to say.
Agreeing with you.
All I was just trying to say is that there's absolutely no reason to do it, because there's no reason to concede. If there was a reason to concede, then they say, okay, you know what? Then you could take it a step further and say, all right, fine. We won't release it day one on Game Pass. We'll give you 90 days, and then it goes to Game Pass. And then if it's still there are other concessions that need to be made, then you could say, okay, well, you know what? Whatever. Maybe we'll wait 120 days to put it on Game Pass, or maybe we'll never put Call of Duty on Game Pass. We'll just keep it as a thing.
That wouldn't happen either, because
I know. I'm just saying this is in an imaginary world that there are concessions required, but there are no concessions required, because they haven't done anything to breach that. Right? To breach that trust.
There's nothing illegal being done here.
Exactly.
Especially when you consider, and I don't think a lot of people understand, when you say the word monopoly, that in its definition here in the United States is 70% of the market. Here's the problem, folks. Sony, who has been in first place for 2 decades long, and more so a couple of years after that, in some regions hold a 70+% ratio when it comes to market share, and no one has done anything about it. There's been no FTC conversation. There's been no EU conversation. There's been no CMA conversation. So that in itself is why, if this was going to be an issue, they could say, concession because of X, Y, and Z. That's not, in fact, what's going to happen here. But I definitely want to, move it along to Hargeet Chani. But Hargeet, before I get to you, brother, I got to thank the 3 super chats that have come in. Dead Planet drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, this industry is so ready for a non-Sony hit game. And I think that is, again, both absolutely correct and on the backs of Microsoft to answer that call. And I believe they're going to do that next year. Drawn TJ drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, what's up, guys? And what's up to you, Drawn TJ? And Highlander 001 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, great show, Mr. Boom. All Sony cares is about Call of Duty. Let me just say, Candy Crush made $1 billion in the last quarter. Yes, it did. Think about that for a second. In the last quarter, it made over $1 billion. That is sick. But listen, Hargeet, you've heard what Pong Sol he suggested. Now, again, I disagree, and he even disagreed. But he feels that this deal is incredibly important to Microsoft as a whole. You obviously work with Game On Daily. You are part of an amazing website with amazing people that make that channel worthwhile, certainly worth subscribing, because, well, Gaz by himself is the draw. He's just a lunatic, and we love him for it. Yep. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think Microsoft will be willing to accept as a decree?
Yeah, I mean, Boom, you saw what I sent to the CMA, right? And I actually made a video of that, and it's up on my channel. But the idea that the monopoly needs to be protected by regulators is just entirely absurd. Look, in the EU, Sony has an 85+% market share. To me, it's just outright absurd to even think about trying to protect that.
Yes,
They should
I
be
agree.
very happy that Microsoft is coming in to break that down, right? It should be the opposite. And I hope in phase 2 they realize this, right? The very fact that we have that tweet, my PlayStation, is because that's all they have there, right? They don't even think of Xbox. It's a joke over there, right? And so if you're going to have that kind of environment and then tell me that, hey, a competitor is coming in to thwart the monopoly, most countries would be saying, great, we don't have to deal with this monopoly. Otherwise, go legislate and break that damn monopoly, right? That's what should be happening. As far as what they will expect, I keep this in mind. The marketing deals that Sony has put in has a stipulation that any game that is marketed by Sony must go into their subscription before going into somebody else's. That's what happened with Deathloop. That's going to happen with Ghostwire Tokyo. Expect that to happen with all the Call of Duties that were part of that marketing deal. So It will happen. It will go to the PlayStation Plus Premium, whatever the heck it is. Okay, so that's the way it's going to get into Game Pass. It's not going to happen day and date, but when they want to bring it into Game Pass, it's going to have to go to PlayStation Plus first. Whatever term that is, 6 months, a year, whatever. It's going to go in there and then go into Game Pass the same day, right? So that is going to happen, right? Beyond that, I would say that would be the most ridiculous thing I've heard. Much of what everybody else has said. If Disney buys Marvel and then Netflix says no, all those things must come to my platform. Are you kidding me?
Yes,
it's up to
exactly.
Disney to decide.
Right.
They can choose to do whatever they want.
They would be laughed out of any room.
It's absolutely
right?
absurd to me. Like the whole thing is absurd to me. First off, Call of Duty is a game.
No, this is worse than that, though, right? Hargy, this is worse than that. This would be like Disney, the number one, movie producer or whatever, saying, as a part of the WB Discovery deal, we require Batman movies on Disney Plus.
Yes.
You have to put it there. I know we're number one, but so what?
Right? It's insanity, right? And like the idea that Call of Duty somehow is so important to Sony and only Sony, because nobody else has complained, right? Steam didn't have this for years. Did Steam fold? They're still here.
Yeah.
It didn't even phase them. It doesn't matter, right? Like this whole thing is so absurd to me. If Microsoft buys them and says, we're going to do Call of Duty every 4 years, is Sony going to go bankrupt? There's no Call of Duty coming next year, right? Is Sony going to go bankrupt? Like this whole argument is just so bafflingly stupid. I don't even understand how this is a thing. This isn't lumber. This isn't steel, right? This isn't an input into other industries. It's a bloody game.
Yes, and it's a bloody one IP.
Exactly.
Do you like how the CMA, when Microsoft brought up how Nintendo has never needed COD, they just turned into that guy from Friday talking about, but that was different.
And better yet, they took Sony's bullshit statement saying that Nintendo makes fitness games, that they're not a game company. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
Right. That's preposterous. Company. Yes, exactly.
Are you serious? Like, really? How insulting. That's what Sony thinks of Nintendo. Really?
Yeah.
But that's what you get, right? So from my perspective, it will happen. They will have stuff in PS Plus because that's the way they're going to get into Game Pass for those Call of Duties that are part of the agreement. So even the next one that comes out in 2024, it's going to have to go into PlayStation Plus and then come to Game Pass. And after that, I can never imagine how they would say yes to that, to say that their game has to go into the competitor's streaming service. That it's just totally baffling to me that would ever happen. Like it could happen, but I just can't imagine why. And Microsoft should definitely fight that.
Yeah, and they probably would. Like I said, I don't know how a regulator could actually look to say that you have to put your $70 billion investment into the other guy's business. But
exactly,
listen, let's bring in Wandering Dutch. Dutch, you've heard what everyone had to say. Mag had to jump out of here. Obviously, he's got work responsibilities at 9, but we will do an outro for him. But what are your thoughts on what everyone had to say? And more importantly, this interview with Phil, Could he have been any more clear for the 1000th time that he has said Call of Duty is staying on PlayStation?
I don't. Yeah, like you say, I don't know how many times he needs to say it. I mean, they obviously don't believe him, despite him proving with the previous IP, Minecraft, that not only has it stayed there, but it's expanded. He said it's going to be like Minecraft about 7 times. And yet they still ask him the same question. Is it going to be on PlayStation? Yes, it's going to be on PlayStation. How many times do I need to tell you it's going to be on PlayStation? Like, we literally don't care about Call of Duty. We're getting this company for King. Like, the entire thing is for the mobile section.
100%.
Call of
Yeah.
Duty is a little cherry on top. Like, outside of that, we need the mobile expansion. He even kind of elaborated on that and said, console gaming is not going to keep any of the gaming sector sustainable. The only way the gaming sector remains a sustainable venture for any company is if they expand to multiple platforms. You can't just rely on console gaming because it's not going to generate enough money to keep you going. And that's a fact, which is why Sony's also moving into mobile and also moving into PC, which is why Nintendo's moved into mobile. Obviously not PC. It's very unlikely they'll do that. But if needs be, I wouldn't put it past Nintendo to start putting some type of games onto PC. Again, would it be like they did with the mobile, Pokemon Snap and things like that? Likely. Things like that might go over to PC because Nintendo know that they need to expand their ventures. So, like, it's a case of just essentially them insinuating at this stage, and Phil Spencer will probably start to get wound up soon. But it's a kind of insinuating that they're just flat out calling them a lion, and it's not going to be kind of on every platform. He's like, well, no, I've said it multiple occasions now. It's going to be on multiple platforms. So it's going to be on multiple platforms. It's as simple as that. Would they put it in PlayStation Plus Premium? I think yes, as long as it's in Game Pass. I think for them, it could be an avenue of them saying to the CMA or FTC or the EU Commission, whoever it is that's asking. So listen, like, if you're so concerned about this subscription service, then Sony can have it in, but we're putting it in ours as well. Like, let them have it in PS Plus Premium. We don't care. Because ultimately, the actual bottom line of that sale of the game means nothing to Microsoft. It's the microtransactions that come off the back end of a live service.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
everything. So they'll get the kickback either way. They don't care whether or not that game's in the service. It's all about the amount of active players and how many people keep spending on that game. And essentially, Call of Duty is essentially that kind of game. So, of course, they don't want to take it away. It's going to generate far too much money in skins, in weapons.
Well, I mean, even more to your point, the next when the deal is done, essentially, Phil Spencer said it's coming to Switch for the first time ever. So that's more revenue that will come the way of the Switch. Now you say, "Oh, the Switch, how could they?" Yeah, they'll just do it the way that Capcom has done Resident Evil 2, 3, 7, and 8, and it's going to be via the cloud. But you're still going to get another revenue source for Call of Duty via another platform, which is bonkers.
Exactly. So it's like you mentioned, again, like Minecraft, it is on everything. It's on mobile, it's on VR, it's on Nintendo, it's on PC, Xbox, console, wherever you can have legitimately a device that plays a game, you can play Minecraft. And that's exactly how they want Call of Duty to be, because it's a game that everyone wants to play. So naturally, they want to put it everywhere that people can play it.
Indeed.
So that is literally the bottom line. I don't know why it's so hard for these people to get it into their skulls, or why. And no offense to the person interviewing, but stop asking the same questions. It's been asked 20,000 times before. The answer is not going to change. It is going to be everywhere. Like, we don't need those questions anymore. Ask different questions.
Or better ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I mean that's a good point. Real quick, just want to shout out Chris Coleman in the chat. Now, obviously, he's a Sony dude, and of course, all gamers are welcome on this podcast. We appreciate you chatting with us. He says Sony never bought a big publisher after they were big. Sony bought small devs that were growing and made 90% of games for Sony. So it made sense to be bought. Bungie is the biggest, and us still the number one dev. The problem with that statement, Chris, isn't the fact that what you're saying is truthful or not truthful. The problem is that, and again, there's no offense to Sony, they can't afford a deal this big. That's the bottom line. They are a $1 billion company, but the reason why they buy small devs is because that's what they can afford. They could, if this deal was offered, let's just say, for instance, the shoe was on the other foot, so to speak, and Sony was being the one buying here. I can guarantee you, I would bet every dollar I personally have and everyone else's that Sony would find a way to make it exclusive. Whether that be for a year, 2 years, 10 years, or permanently, Sony would do what Sony does best, and that is make people go buy a PlayStation console. Whether that be a PS4, 5, 6, or 10, it doesn't matter. They would go out of their way if they could afford this kind of a deal, and they cannot. They cannot afford this deal, which is why they are terrified that Microsoft is going to lock this particular game that makes. Let's call a spade here, folks. Do you know what makes the most money for Sony? You think it's going to be their 4 quote unquote bangers this year? It is not going to be even close. It is going to be Call of Duty that makes the most revenue. Their first party games will not even, they can't even compare in the conversation, because the problem with Sony's first parties isn't the quality of the games. It's you folks, the gamers, that don't buy first party games. That is Sony's biggest problem. And that is one of the reasons why they are not buying Activision Blizzard King, and Microsoft is. They cannot financially afford it. But I want to bring in Crispy Bomb into the conversation, and then we'll get everyone
to add to your point there, though.
Yes, please.
They did that when they started, right? They went and bought Psygnosis, which was one of the biggest publishers at the time.
They did do that. That is
Sony did that.
Yeah, so, they kind of did. You're absolutely correct. And Psygnosis was the biggest one at the time and made incredible content for the PlayStation 1, by the way.
Yep.
So that's a fantastic point. I forgot about that Psygnosis deal. And and if you don't know, Psygnosis made some of the best PlayStation 1 games in the business at the time. And those are IPs I wish would come back from Sony at some point. But that's a great comment. Let's bring Crispy Bomb. Crispy, you've heard everyone. Dutch just knocked it out of the park along with Hargeet, Everborn Saga, myself, and of course the Mag. What are your thoughts on this, dude? I mean, do you agree, or do you have a different theory?
I say, Pong, hey, like, go for it. Like, I don't think Microsoft really cares about Call of Duty right now. They make so much money off the microtransactions. I mean, they're looking at this and probably saying, okay, I mean, could they add into a contract that, they'll release it on their service at some point? I could see it happening. But it'll still be a contract that'll still have an end date. Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna say indefinitely forever. What kind of logic would that be? I mean, you could say, and this is where people are gonna be like, boom, you just said that, Sony's the biggest. We're talking about games here. So I just want people to not put words in people's mouths. We are talking about the gaming division, okay? Sony made bad choices. Sony used to be the big dog, okay? They used to be up there chilling with Microsoft. If you remember the Walkmans and all the innovation they've done over their lifetime. I mean? They have done things that most companies, would take 50, 60 years. They did in 20, if you really think about it. Taking what the PlayStation started out as, they were basically going to just get in bed with Nintendo to what it is now. But at the same time, you can't sit here and act like they don't have monopoly in these exact areas that are causing the biggest problem for Microsoft. And this is where you go and say, why is even Call of Duty? Everybody brings up Call of Duty like Phil hasn't said that he's going to release it like Minecraft. Okay. He has said this several times. It's only logical. Call of Duty Mobile is very successful for them as well. So they look at this as a multi-tiered, layered system that they get the developers they need for their mobile, gaming that, maybe it's a mobile Game Pass down the road, whatever it may be. The point is, as far as the consumer is concerned, it's only going to get more affordable to play these games. You're going to get more things involved with these games. When they buy Activision, it is going to allow Activision to say, you know what? Now you get these huge amount of perks in the Game Pass. Why are we always talking about Sony? Why is this not about the consumer? And this is what drives me crazy.
Yep.
And this is why this entire argument, this is why Microsoft is not going to lay down to certain aspects of this. And this is why Phil called them out the other day. Okay. And also said that Nintendo's not saying anything. You know what I mean? Well, why is Nintendo relevant in certain areas, but not relevant in others? Oh, they only do certain things. They are a gaming company. They are part of this 3-tiered gaming thing that we've had for it feels like our entire lives. And we've watched ones die and watched ones come up, and we've seen all of this. Well, right now, Sony has a monopoly in these areas that are calling him out, and you're not going to allow somebody to come in and break that monopoly up by being competitive.
Yep.
Okay. And this is what we're talking about. So, when it's all said and done, okay, there's going to be a lot of foul crying if this comes out differently than what we expect. Could there be some consent decrees, some concessions? Sure. But they're not going to give the kitchen sink. And anybody that expects that is just thinking absolutely absurdly. And I don't understand why we're still this should have been passed. I'm going to be honest. I've seen a lot of mergers in my lifetime. This one seems the most simplest and easiest for them to say, there's nothing illegal here. And it's just it's almost like, we you kind of starting to see it. We're thinking these younger regulators that are in there might only have a PlayStation because the bias can be in the game awards. The bias can be in government as well. And we see it all the time. Yeah. So there will be some major problem. And I think also, I think you're going to hear a lot more if there's, issues. If one of them says no, I think the U.S. government's going to get a lot louder because I think the FTC's already got what they want. They got the union thing. That's really what they were looking at. And I think that's going to go through, but they're going to be very quiet. But you're going to see the government speak up if you're looking at a company that has a monopoly share in the industry we're talking about getting defended by a government regulator. It just makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, good stuff by everybody. Real quick, I want to answer Sam Walton in the chat. He says, Sony first-party games, for the most part, sell very well. Yeah, after time. Not initially. God of War took a long time to hit 20 million. Maybe not this God of War. Spider-Man 2018 took years after to hit the 20 million mark. And also, the reason why you didn't hear numbers for Gran Turismo and also Horizon Forbidden West is because they sold horrible. They sold terribly. And the only way they started getting some ground, more specifically, the reason why you started hearing numbers and Sony talk about numbers for Horizon is when they started giving it away with their consoles. When they were adding it with every console sold, that counted as a game being sold, and that's why they started talking numbers. Initially, they didn't sell well. We have not heard any numbers really for the Last of Us 1 remake because it didn't probably move as well as Sony thought it would. Now, granted, we are hearing numbers for God of War, specifically in the UK, where it outsold Call of Duty, and that's a big deal. That is a really, really big deal. God of War, Ragnarok is a masterclass achievement from the studio that brought us God of War 2018, and it's going to win awards left and right this year, rightfully so. But at the same time, let's not make any mistakes here and suggest that a first party game from Sony is going to ultimately outsell something like Call of Duty. It's just never going to happen. But I want to catch up on a couple of super chats that have come in. Highlander 001 drops a very generous additional $2 super chat and says Sony is scared of who Microsoft might acquire next. That is absolutely fact. And I think it's going to be Sega, but that's just me. John Wolf, good friend of the program, drops a $10 super chat and says, how about this point? Even if Call of Duty releases on PS Plus, all of those players who play said Call of Duty game is all of a sudden a MS customer. Microsoft can benefit even if the game is on PlayStation. Take care, gentlemen. I mean, there is a point, but I don't think it will end up ultimately there. I think it's going to go to Game Pass. I think that it's going to stay on Sony for, again, what I mean, Microsoft loves money. Their investors love money. And why would you take it away from PlayStation, which is right now the number one place to play Call of Duty? But let's get to the outros. I want to thank everybody that tuned in. We had well over 400 people here today. Thank you so much for checking the show out. If you're new and you enjoyed the banter, I do this 5 days a week. I'm a full-time streamer, 5 different shows, 5 different panels, all great content and all content that is highly researched to make sure that when I get it wrong, like I did this when we started the show, with the Microsoft having games that were in the Game of the Year conversation, we talk about it. Hargeet Chani, you are obviously, people are asking for your social media tags, folks. I'm sorry to tell you, brother, he doesn't have any because he doesn't do social media, and that's okay. But you also represent Game On Daily. I want you to talk about that, and more importantly, if people wanted to reach out to you, maybe on Discord, could they do that?
Yeah. So definitely check out GameOnDaily.com. It's a news aggregation platform for gaming. It should hopefully help you out getting all the information that's out there. And then our YouTube channel is youtube.com/GameOnDaily. And as I mentioned, I actually had put up a video, not on Game On Daily, but on my own channel, going over what I sent to the CMA. If anybody wants to check it out.
Yeah, and you know what? To talk about that for a second. First of all, Hargeet was kind enough to send me the actual letter that he sent the EU Commission. It was the EU Commission or the CMA?
It was a CMA. It was a
CMA, and it was phenomenally written. I mean, unbelievable, amazing points. If they were to read a letter, that is the one they should read. Talk about it, brother.
Yeah, so I threw the link in the private chat if you want to throw it in the other way in the normal chat. But yeah, so basically on my channel, I just basically took what I actually read and talked through it, and you can actually see the text that I have that on the video itself, so you can see what I actually wrote. And then I added my 2 cents on the EU and what their phase 1 outcome was as well. So that's kind of something you can check out if you want to. And then as far as social, I do not do any of the Twitters and all that stuff. But I am on Xbox. Chani is my gamer tag, and it's the same on Discord, but I think there's a number on it, so I don't know. I have to figure out a way to get you a link or something for Discord. I'm not sure how that works, but so that's so Xbox is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Yeah, I'm going to throw his YouTube page into the chat right now. So get over there, not only subscribe, but also go check out his video. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's well done. I think what he had to say is incredibly intelligent and certainly worthy of your listen. Hargeet, thank you, brother, for joining us. Wandering Dutch, brother, you had a great show today. I am so sorry that I could not have joined. I was getting my 9/11 physical that I have to do every year to be covered. Obviously, if you don't know, I was a police officer, and I spent 46 days down at Ground Zero. So to make sure that the NYPD keeps paying me, I have to make sure that I'm alive. And obviously, there's nothing to report, which is incredibly important. But I was doing that. Talk about your show today, brother. It was awesome.
Yeah. It's obviously it's a midweek mix-up podcast every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK. That's 2 p.m. Eastern. Of course, we covered the Game Awards as well, discussed that. We also discussed kind of a more in-depth, should we say, impressions or halfway through the game impressions of God of War Ragnarok. Spoiler-free, of course. We're not breaking any spoilers for the game in itself. We're talking about myself playing on the PlayStation 4 Pro and the other 2 guys who were playing on the PlayStation 5. any differences we've noticed, any performance issues, things like that. And then, of course, the differences in the pacing of the game, the story, etc. So that's been awesome. Of course, I'm everywhere these days. So you can find me on my channel, on the Wandering Dutch, on Boxing Burger's channel for World of Gaming every Thursday, right here, of course, on Primetime Gaming, every Tuesday for Sea of Tuesdays Playcast, and every second Sunday on the weekend edition as well. So
yeah, thank you so much.
Almost as much as you, Boom.
Yeah. No, listen, you're working it hard, and obviously we are not getting rewarded by the YouTubes, folks. Listen, if you want to see our channels grow, if you appreciate the work that we're putting in, this goes on for Living Split Screen. This goes on for Game On Daily. This goes on for all the smaller channels that are currently right now struggling. Real life, folks. I have, I think, 71 new subs in 30 days. That is an all-time record low for the channel. I don't know what I've done. Wandering Dutch has seen the same kind of shenanigans. It seems like the smaller channels that still pay their dues in 30% of everything that we get in, whether it be Super Chat or channel membership, YouTube takes that money and they're glad to take it. And I'm glad to give it to them because they do offer us a lot of analytics that I'm glad I don't have to do. But the problem with Game On Daily, the problem with Living Split Screen and Gaming Circle Podcast and all the smaller ones, we're struggling to get views because we have been taken out of the algorithm and there is no one that we can complain to. And so if you want to help us, if you want to help your favorite small timer, of course, I'm not talking about the dealers and the Rands. These are mammoths in the industry, in the circles that we run in. Obviously, Colt Eastwood's another one. They're sitting close to or over 100,000 subs because their content is that good. So YouTube cannot ignore them because they're hitting these numbers. They are ignoring the small guys, and a lot of us are struggling. So if you want to help your favorite content creator, do all of us a favor. Get out there, regardless of who it is, and sell their brand for us. Put it out there. Say, hey, listen, you want to hear an Xbox show? Check out Boom. You want to hear, you want to hear crazy antics? Go check out Game On Daily. These things help us more than you know, and we are incredibly grateful for any help that comes our way from the community at large, because that is where our bread and butter is, and that is how we build our channels. And we're all doing it the grassroots way without the help of YouTube, and it's sometimes extremely frustrating, folks. So if you want to help us, please put our information out on the socials, and when you see something, retweet it, favor it, talk about it, and maybe we can get back into the good graces of the mysterious algorithm known as YouTube. Crispy Bomb, sell your brand, brother. Where are you going to be tomorrow night? And more importantly, where can people reach out to you on social media?
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Shout out to the chat at Crispy Bomb on Twitter, Crispy Bomb 28, Xbox Live. You can find me tomorrow night, 8 p.m. The next podcast, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Retro Renegades, and back here on Wednesday. Next week is up in the air because depends how good the turkeys treat me. So.
Well, we're, like I said, we'll talk. We'll see. I mean, there's no show next Thursday. Obviously, it's Thanksgiving. I got to talk with the panel, see if anyone can. In fact, will be here on Wednesday. If we can, we'll have a show. If not, we will not. And Friday morning, I got to talk with the guys to see if they could be here for Breakfast with Boom. If not, I'll take a 3-day vacation. And it'd be nice, but I like being on the air, and we will see at some point. Even if I have to stream a smaller stream by myself or with a bunch of community members that can in fact be there, we will talk on moving forward. But listen, Crispy, thank you for your hot take opinions as always. And Everborn Saga, sell your brand, brother. Talk about your own IP, the Everborn Saga, and where can people reach out to you on social media?
Well, for social media, you can reach out to me every place at Everborn Saga, but also I Every week I tell everybody, check out everboardsaga.com. You can see these comics we are making. We are gearing up just like Microsoft. We had a light 2022, but 2023 is going to be balls to the walls. When I tell you we got 3 comics in production right now, we're also working on a game for the Redland series we just released. 2023 is going to be a big year. And if you want to stay up to date, get up to date with the story, check out everbornsaga.com. There won't be any Gaming Circle podcast this week, but there will be one. Well, maybe there will be. I know Kay did some pre-recording stuff. But check out the Gaming Circle podcast on YouTube. And if you want to see more Sonic clips, just follow me on Twitter. I'm sharing it as I go. Game of the Year 2022, Sonic Frontiers.
Love it. I absolutely agree. I listen. It's a game that's gonna be in my top 10, maybe even in my more than likely even my top 5, to be honest with you. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be your primetime gaming for this Wednesday. Hopefully you enjoyed enough to subscribe and also hit the like button. Of course, I want to thank all the super chats that come in. Those help us do major things on the channel. Not only through getting new programs and new equipment, but giving back to the community. And we are doing that this December, the 3rd week of December, folks, on the 5th annual Christmas with Mr. and Mrs. Boomstick. We have already doled out $2,200 worth of giveaways. Well, folks, we're adding a 1,000 one-day, one-show giveaway, $500 up front, for people that are channel members, and anyone that's in the chat that drops a super chat that is a channel member and is hanging out with us for the second half of the show have a shot at the additional $500. That's right, $1,000 in 2 hours. It's the biggest giveaway we've ever done, and we can only do that through the generosity of the people, and that is through channel memberships and, of course, super chats. Of course, I want to close out the show with something, folks, that's important to me. Hopefully one day be important to you, and that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids, and he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated, and also it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone, and we'll potentially see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.